This is Montego Bradley from Fans of Patrol, and you're listening to the Geek World All-Stars Podcast Network.
Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of Superhero Speak.
But I think many of the people that love this character and that love superheroes in general have used these stories as inspiration to say, you know what, I'm going to do something good in the world. I'm going to make a difference like my hero when I was a kid.
That is my fondest memory of it, because when you're doing comic books, you want them to affect people. Right. You want people to care. You want to strike emotions. And I knew that Clone Saga was striking a lot of emotions.
Can you imagine Pulp Fiction starring Goofy and Mickey Mouse?
I can totally imagine that.
I'm sure somebody's written that one
quarter pounder with cheese in France, Mickey? What? Boy, ale with cheese, Mickey. Yeah. I can totally.
See?
I would watch the hell out of that movie.
Yes, I gladly sacrifice up my progeny to you, almighty Marvel beast.
But Neil Adams is somewhere going, it's my time.
How do you measure success? Hey everyone, you're listening to Superhero Speak, and I'm your host Dave.
And I'm wrecked. John. It is, yeah.
Are you drinking to recover?
Well, I did do the normal post-con preparation, which is basically I took a bath in Purell. I had at least 3 glasses of wine. I hid in a corner for a time and cried. I think I've got it all out of my system now. Oh yeah, and that does that, and the bottle of ibuprofen, and the customary visit to the chiropractor.
Oh, that's important.
I think that covers it. Oh no, and the massive dose of vitamins, just in case, con crud.
Well, for those who are wondering, JD's off this week because John and I just got back from New York Comic-Con, and we would like to talk about that. And since JD did not go with us because, he's a wimp. I mean, he had better things to do with his time and money. We gave him the week off. So yeah.
Well, I mean, considering we have like 12 hours of audio, something crazy.
Yeah.
And a hell of a lot of video. Yeah. He could take a while off. Hell, we could take a while off.
We might have to. Yeah, we just got back yesterday from New York Comic-Con. It was 4 days of interviews, cosplayers, things to see, panels, hanging out with other podcasters, and
swimming through seas of humanity.
Seas of humanity. It was crazy. It was. I don't know what the official numbers are, but it was probably the most crowded I've ever seen it. And yeah.
And weird times too. Like, so Thursday is usually the good indicator. Thursday we had the influx of the all the con exclusive people, right? The ones that are going there for the Funko stuff to get all the con exclusives and get it out of the way. So usually you can tell how the rest of the days are going to go by how many people are there. Usually it's only just slightly lighter than a Saturday. Not this time though. This time Thursday was really, really, really packed. Friday was somewhat lighter, and then Saturday got to a point probably around 1:00 where you literally could not move without basically doing the backstroke through the crowd. And then suddenly there were gaps in the hallways around 3:00. Sunday was pretty busy too, but overall I'd say compared to the last few years that if last year they said they had 250,000 people, I would not be surprised if they had 270 this year.
Yes, actually, I'm looking at now, and 250,000 is what they had last year, and I could only find stuff that came out before the convention, saying they sold at least 200,000 tickets. So, I think there was more than 250,000 people there. So, yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, so because this is the second year that we had our press passes, we did get in on a whole bunch of panels. One panel that I'm very, 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 very sad about. because we had a technical glitch, and of that entire panel, we lost the one person we didn't want to lose out of the audio. But
you don't need to say all of that because there is a chance to save it. We've already discussed this.
Yes, I know. We also took video of stuff.
Yes, there is video. If we can rip the audio off of that and clean it up, we will have that interview.
Right. So anyway, it was a round table, not an interview. I guess got to get our terminology straight now, seeing as how we're doing all three types. We didn't have any pressers this time around. No big table at the front with all the press in the audience. But we did have two round tables? 3 round tables?
We had two press rooms this year, and we were invited to other ones, but I kind of prefer trying to doing the one-on-ones. We had at least, I think we had 12 or 13 one-on-one interviews this year, and and then we went to a panel or two and saw some fun stuff. So let's talk about some of the stuff that we saw. Like, you had gone to this Expanse thing.
Yes. We got VIP treatment at the Expanse booth, the Expanse experience. And they basically had a structure there where you go inside and it looks like the ship on the Expanse. And it was pretty cool. They take your picture there with a blue screen behind you and make it look like you're walking out of, I guess, the ship. And then it's somewhere in my email. Actually, I have to go get that. I just realized that now talking about it. and then you got to sit in the chair on the ship. And I'm telling you, that chair was hard plastic, and yet when you sit down in it, it is the most comfortable thing you ever sit in. It was hard to get out of it. But you get to take a picture of that. And so not much to it, but then again, they're probably I can't believe how much they probably paid for the space to put that structure there. Yeah.
No, that's true. There was also a Star Trek one
which we didn't get to.
You go into it and it looked like a transporter pad.
Oh, did you go into it?
And yes, it plays like light.
Oh, right.
It plays all these. It flashes lights and it plays this really loud noise. It's the tractor beam sound from Star Trek. And
the tractor beam, or you mean the transporter beam?
Transporter beam. I'm sorry. Yes, yeah. Transporter beam, and you're transported down to an alien planet, and it's more disorienting than anything else.
You should have told me that, because basically in the middle of the transport, we could have mashed the controls and had a chance to go back in time and recover the audio for
Oh, you're funny.
There was an equal chance of splitting us into evil clones, but same diff there.
Yes, so there was a lot of cool things like that.
We also got to talk to Legion M, the company made up completely. Fully owned by the fans.
Yes.
We talked to Jeff Annison, who is a co-founder president, and David Baxter, VP of development. We also got to talk to Sandy King Carpenter, wife of, yes, that Carpenter, which I have to keep reminding myself, she is a creator in her own right. So I kept referring to her as John Carpenter's wife, and it's wrong because she is Sandy King Carpenter, Sandy King, and she's done quite a bit. We got to sit down and talk to her about her accomplishments. What else did we see? We saw a giant panda.
We saw a giant panda. We saw a Deadpool Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, that Deadpool Winnie the Pooh, I caught him in a Deadpool procession that went by the Starbucks when I was in line at one point.
Yes, so that's another thing. We got lots and lots of pictures this year. Some of them are already on our Instagram. Some of them are already on our Facebook. So if you're not following us on either, you should be. We're at Superhero Speak on Instagram and /Superhero Speak on all one word on Facebook. So
yep. And by the time this comes out, I'll have put up the gallery of all of the cosplays and all the rest of the pictures that we took. So go to our Facebook and everything will be there with links to all the cosplayers and Instagrams and whatever I got, whatever people handed me when we took their pictures.
Yes. Yeah, and check out some cool cosplayers. There were some really neat costumes this year. The one that we didn't get a picture of, because the one time I actually saw the guy, I heard so many people were talking about him, and the one time I saw him, I didn't pull my phone out fast enough. But every night, there was a guy dressed as Captain America with Thor's hammer riding a Harley up and down the street in front of the convention center.
That's a shame. We need more people so we can stake that out.
Yes.
You know, I'm kind of sad that we didn't get to see No Ordinary Makeup Mom, because I've seen her at quite a few conventions now. Although it's possible, given our history, that I did see her and just didn't recognize her because she's that freaking good.
Yes. The last time we saw her at a convention, she walked up to you and said, "You don't recognize me, do you?"
And I said, No, I do not. And that happened 2 days in a row. I'm really not observant.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. So, yeah, and we reconnected with a few other people. I saw Nicole Evans there, and she has more books. We didn't get to sit and talk with her, but we'll probably catch up with her next time I see her, because she'll probably have another 5 books by then.
Right. We talked to Kaylin Smith and Dirk Manning, and they both were crowded.
Yeah, which is good for them.
Right. They were busy the whole time.
Kaylin was swamped with commissions, so
Yes.
we didn't get to talk to them, but we will talk to them in the future soon, because they both have Kickstarters. Who else? We reconnected with Stabity Bunny.
Yeah.
And that's an interview that we'll be releasing.
With some exclusive content.
Yes, exclusive. I got to read an issue of Stabity Bunny that is, I don't know what do you call it when it's not published yet, when it's just pages with the lines on it for what the framing's going to be. In one of my old jobs, it was called a red line, but I'm not sure what it's called in the actual market. I should have asked. But I got to read the issue. It's not published yet. And it's been taken out of the standard issue lineup because it deals with some sensitive situations that have to do with today and not politics. So don't worry about that. But they did it it's really good. And when we do the interview, we'll be linking to more information about it.
Right. We don't want to release it too early because, spoilers.
Yeah. It's not out yet. I mean,
one of the coolest things this year, we actually got to meet and hang out with the guys from Colt 45. Well, Random Randy Savage from Colt 45. Beat 'em Down did not come out to New York, just Randy, and the whole crew from So Wizard. So Joey, Adam, Aubrey, and Mark Ellis. So that was a lot of fun. We got to meet them. Some other podcasters as well. Guys from Ghost in the Stratosphere. And I don't remember. These are all people Joey knew, and they were we were all gathering together.
Yeah, they're just more. At one point, the cosplay area. We have to pass through the cosplay area to get to the press room. We were all gathered in front of the press area anyway. And at one point, I think we might have outnumbered the cosplayers.
Right.
There was five podcasts there. I don't know.
Yes, and and it's funny because us and So were the only ones who had press passes, from my understanding. So
it's okay. We started there too.
Yeah,
for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I did go out to dinner with the guys from So Wizard and Randy one night. John didn't join us.
No, I was wandering out and about.
Yes. So yeah, no, it was really cool. Meeting those guys. It's it's nice to know they're nice people in real life. It's not just an act on their podcasts.
Well, for some of them it is. But
for us, I mean,
yeah.
I don't think they're ever going to talk to us again, but that's a whole other story.
Well, Dave, when you start pinching their butts,
Joey said he liked it.
Oh, yeah. Who else did we see? Oh, Source Point Press, of course. We talked to them.
Yes.
I got to see Stan Kanapka. I got to mistake
Lee.
What was his name? Lee for Stan again. I've done that.
They look
twice now.
nothing alike, people.
They look exactly alike. Well, to me.
No. Lee has a really long beard. Stan has a short, normal beard. Lee is bald. Stan is not bald. Like, I don't understand.
One is a slayer of the spotted lanternfly population, and the other is probably more dangerous. I'm not sure which is which at that point. So yeah, I got to talk to Casey Pierce. Got to talk to her. She was there at Source Point Press. She's the author of Nora and Pieces of Darkness or what? I forget the name of the book now.
Then she did a panel we went to on the last day about social media for comic book creators, but it was actually a good panel because it had information that anyone really could use who wants to use social media to forward their business.
Yep, and we did not record that. We did, however, video the whole thing, which we will be putting up on YouTube.
YouTube, yes.
Yeah, and her book is Pieces of Madness, which little tip here. According to her, the copies of Pieces of Madness that they got from the publisher that they sell at the cons has the shiny cover, and the version that they sell from Amazon, which I got, has the matte cover. And the matte cover, it doesn't hold your fingerprints.
Yes.
So yeah,
that was a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was good.
No, it was really good. We got a lot of good coverage this year. Oh, and if you are not doing this, you really need to go and check out our website, superheroespeak.com. There are a bunch of articles up there right now, all coverage from the convention. There's a couple more coming, and actually they'll probably be up before the show comes out. But yeah, like we've got information about the next season of She-Ra up there. We've got an exclusive first look at the FX series devs, and there's an exclusive clip from Marvel's Hero Project, and a very nice story about Kevin Conroy and the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. Oh yeah, he confirmed something by accident.
It was one of his stories that revealed something. Who knows? We didn't ask him straight out, like, did you mean to say that? But
right, he just kind of said it. As we were talking, he started off talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths, how he had just come in from Vancouver from recording, and said the story was, and you're going to hear this. We're about to play the interview. The story is he's was nervous about being. He hasn't done back into acting. He hasn't done anything live action since '95, and his scene partner helped him feel more comfortable again. And his scene partner was Ruby Rose, which confirms that he has a scene at least with Batwoman at some point, and something
which is cool, which is very, very cool because the season is starting now, so we're only a month and a half away from starting the Crisis crossovers.
Right, and then there was something else that both John and I noticed. No one else commented on it. We didn't bring it up. It's also, I did mention in the article that we have on our website. There was a distinctive red line across his face, across the bridge of his nose and under his cheeks, where it looked like he had been wearing something.
It could have been a CPAP machine.
It could have been a CPAP. It could have been a sleeping mask.
Shaped like a cow.
Shaped like a cow. We're just saying, maybe Batman has a CPAP machine, or there's a chance the gentleman will be in costume.
Yeah. don't know
Yes.
that for sure, but we do know what he said, which confirms
Yes, so to
something
be
else.
responsible reporters, we're not saying he is, but it kind of...
No, we're going to say it like real reporters, or it's like, how would they say that on Fox or MSNBC? It's like they'd use a big question mark, and they'd say, maybe he played Batman?
There you go. Maybe he wears the cowl?
Because if he didn't, we're covered. But, if he did, we scooped it.
So, without any more yimmering and yammering from us, let's hear from Batman himself, Mr. Kevin Conroy.
Hi, guys.
Hi, hello.
No, Batman doesn't take breaks.
How are you?
Good.
So now you're the live-action Batman, too.
How cool is that?
That's pretty impressive. That's awesome.
I was in Vancouver yesterday. I'm in the midst of doing it now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You're all going to be blown away. This production, the sets, the cast, it's massive.
It sounds
massive.
Incredibly ambitious.
It's massive. And it looks beautiful.
Sounds like a scheduling nightmare with all those celebs on it.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine how they're doing it. They've got crews all over doing it at the same time, doing the different shows at the same time. I don't know how they're doing it.
Yeah.
So you've been the voice of Batman for many.
He is Batman.
There you go. There you go.
Good man.
Here's a 20.
How does it feel to finally play in live action?
It feels amazing. I was just telling these other people, I haven't done anything on camera since '95.
Wow.
The last show I did was with Valerie Harper. It was her last show. It was a series called The Office that I don't think ever got on the air. We did like 6 episodes. And after that, voice work just kind of took over my career. I just started getting more and more and more of it. I was making a good living at it, so that's what happened. It just sort of, it wasn't an intentional move.
Right.
I just, the career just kind of took me there. But I love working on camera. I love acting on stage. I've done a little stage work in the interim, but nothing on camera. So this has been the first day. I have to admit, it was a little nerve-wracking, thinking, when I'm in a booth, I feel so safe. I feel so like in a womb and able to be an idiot. I'm able to expose myself and be a fool and feel totally comfortable doing it. But when you're surrounded by 100 people on a crew and cameras all focused on you, suddenly you're very aware of every move you make.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was being so self-conscious, and I thought, you've got to get over that. You've got to get past that. And you know what brought me back into it? Was this wonderful actress that I'm working with in it, Ruby Rose.
Oh, yeah.
She is so... Looking into her eyes on the other side of the camera, I just fell into her eyes. I thought, okay, I'm back in that room again. I'm back. I'm able to just block out everything around me, and I'm just talking to her. And it brought it all back to me. But the first day, I was very self-conscious. I had to get past that.
Would this possibly lead to more future guest appearances as Bruce Wayne?
You never know.
Okay.
I've learned to never say never.
Fair
because
enough.
no matter what I plan, the earth throws something else at me.
Is it
Life
hard
throws nothing but curveballs. I have learned that lesson.
How self-conscious do you have to be when everyone else is wearing a cape and tights around you? I mean, it's I would imagine that that fades somewhat quickly because it's like there's nothing. You're not being ridiculous when everyone else is also being ridiculous. It's a.
Yeah, when it's a given in the universe, you don't even see it.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious for you all to see it. It's gonna be really beautiful.
One of my favorite things about Batman Beyond was that I think it has this edge even over standard Batman stories because it's always asking the question of what happens if this stubborn, super brooding, serious guy stays this course? What's going to happen?
Stays what?
Stays this course of being so serious, being so stubborn. It's established that he loses the relationships with those who's closest, the whole Bat family, and everything. So you kind of have two Bruces that you play. Last year was the 25th of one Bruce, and then you have older Bruce. And I always loved from a kid, meaning not only that it was the continuity, of course, but even just the fact that your performance as old Bruce. What did you do to kind of what place did you go to for old Bruce versus younger Bruce to bring out that beautiful old voice.
The key to me for playing old Bruce in this, in Batman Beyond, and also in the Crisis that I'm doing now, is that he's got all the passions of young Bruce, all the will, all the desire, all the needs, but his body won't let him do it anymore. It's just holding him back. And that frustration, what does that frustration turn into? What does that do to you? Does it embitter you? Does it anger you? Does it make you want to do even more good? Or does it push you to evil? And all those questions have to be answered. And that to me is the dynamic of playing old Bruce. And if you leave all those questions open, then the audience never loses interest. Where's he going to go? What's he going to do? You see the frustration, but where's that frustration going to lead him?
Yeah, I always say, what does a guy do when he can't do it anymore?
Yeah. And the first episode of Batman Beyond, he's about to kill someone. He's about to pull a trigger. Bruce Wayne doesn't do that. The Batman we know doesn't do that. And he realizes, if I've got to rely on a gun, then I'm not the hero I want to be. And he puts it down. And it's a cathartic moment for him.
So is this for me?
So
thank you.
Kind of like on that same level, like one of the most defining things about Batman Beyond is really the relationship between Bruce and Terry.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering how you kind of developed that relationship with Will, both like in and out of the booth. Like,
well, that's a great thing about Andrea. Andrea was sort of the secret weapon for Warner Brothers. She casts so well. She knows what to look for. She started out as an actress in college, and then she was a stage manager, and she eventually got into casting. So she's seen it from lots of different angles, the business. She knows how actors think. She knows what actors need. She understands that acting is really reacting. It really should be called reacting, because you're reacting to what the other person gives you. You're reacting to what life gives you. You're always reacting to something. And if the other person is giving you crap, it's very hard to act with them, to give them something positive back. If the other person is so into their own ego and their own head that all you see is them looking at themselves. I've acted with actors where they'll be acting with you and they're staring at your hairline through the whole thing. And you keep going like, what are they looking at? I know they're not looking in my eyes. What are they looking at? Because they're just thinking about the line. They're thinking about their performance. They're not looking at you. They're not, I'm not kidding. How do you act with that? So Andrea is really great at casting people who are great at putting their ego outside the door and understand that you've got to give in order to get. If you want to give a great performance, you've got to give 100% to the other actor. And they will give 100% back, and that'll give you more to give back to. It's like a game of catch. The more you give, the more you get, the more you can give again. Will is one of those actors. She brought him in, and the minute I met him, he's just got that personality. He looked me square in the eyes, and we just hit it off. And from the first day, there was just a wonderful rapport. And I gave him a lot of shit because when he was younger, he smoked, and I was a smoker as a teenager, and I know how hard it is to quit. I quit on my 21st birthday, and he was past his 21st birthday when we started. I said, "I'm telling you, you are screwed if you don't stop this now." And I was on him every time we were together and stopped. I was a prick.
So Batman made him quit?
And I made him quit!
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, Batman. Ooh. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
See you guys. Take care. Appreciate talking to you. See you
Pleasure.
guys.
Thank you. Take care, Kevin.
That was Batman.
All right, and we're back.
We always get good interviews with him.
Yes.
You know, I mean, and again, this was a roundtable, not a one-on-one interview. We got to ask him literally only 3 questions at the
Wizard
World Philly.
But
may it rest in peace.
But we were able to. I had asked him at that convention that I pointed out he is probably the most famous person to play Batman to a lot of fans, but he's never actually played him in live action. So I asked him at the roundtable, how does it feel to finally play the live-action Batman? So I was happy that I got to ask that question. So if you didn't realize, that was my voice.
Yeah.
So before we get to the next interview,
you're doing another one. Okay.
I wanted to make sure that I mentioned, of course, I said we hung out with Colt 45, Randy Savage, and the entire crew from Wiz So Wizard. There was, let's also not forget Prism Power Podcast, Gorilla Brain, and Fans on Patrol, the other members of the Geek World All-Stars.
We can forget some of those.
So yes, you guys should check out all those other podcasts if you haven't so far, and also look for hashtag GW All-Stars on Twitter. Whenever we tweet something about the shows, usually we use that hashtag. And
no, go ahead.
No. Say what you were going to say, because.
Oh, I was going to say I forgot to mention one other thing that we got to do while we were at the convention. That? We got to hide pictures.
Oh yes, go ahead. Tell them about that.
Yeah, so Kit Steele, one of my favorite artists, was there, creator of the Tea Dragons. And if you haven't seen or heard of the Tea Dragons, do a search on Kit Steele, STEEL, or go to storeenvy.com/silvertails, TALES. And basically, what she does at some of these cons is she takes some very small originals and hides them throughout the first floor. So she didn't have time because this was her first year in Artist Alley, and so she handed them to us. Said, "Go do it." So I spent some time, putting these things around. Apparently, they got snapped up as soon as I walked away, for the most part. I think last time it took a while for people to find them.
And what's the cool part about it when people find these things?
Oh, they get free art first off, and then I think that basically it was a discount at her table down in Artist Alley.
It's a cool little promotion to find new to get people interested in her art. So if you happen to be at a show where Kit Steele is, keep your eyes open. You might see something out on the floor.
Yep. So what else we got teed up?
Well, before we do anything else, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
All right, now we're back. We can talk about the next interview. Now, it's funny because I didn't mention this to you while we were there, John, but this is somebody I've actually tried to get on the show before.
Okay.
He is the voice, most notably, of Terry McGinnis from Batman Beyond. Of course.
Oh, yeah. I know who that is.
Will Friedle. He was also, of course, on Boy Meets World. He's done a bunch of other voices in the DC animated universe, and
apparently he'll take a picture with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other bastard on this podcast, when my back was turned, jumped up and took a picture with Will, and then boom, Will was gone out the door, and I didn't know, but until he posted the picture on social media. He left me in the dust.
Well,
he left me in the dust, boys and girls.
Too bad. Sorry, you snooze, you lose.
What kind of friend is he, people? What kind of friend?
Well, the kind that is a picture with Will Friedle. That's what it is.
All right. So, on that note, of course, everyone knows this man. He was there talking about Batman Beyond and Batman in general, but also just a little bit about his career. Without much further ado, here is Will Friedle.
Hey, here I'm Williams.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. How are you? That last table was pretty good, so just saying.
We'll
try our best.
Right, the pressure's on.
Hey, I prepared for a long time. All right. That works for me. I have never seen that show, but I hear it's great.
Although I will say, you are the Bugs Bunny of that show.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate. Yeah.
So, I guess the first question I have is, Was this an audition process?
It was, yeah. I had never done voiceover before. So, straight up audition process. And the only reason I actually got the audition is because Bruce Timm's wife was a Boy Meets World fan. And she said, that guy there, I think, he has a great voice. You should bring him in for something. And so I always say, thank you, Bruce Timm's wife, or I'm not going to be sitting here right now.
What appealed? TGI his wife?
Yeah, seriously.
What appealed to you about the character that made you want to play it?
He's Batman. I mean, that's all you need. He's it was having never done animation at all, and to step into Batman. And I'm a huge animation fan, and was before I went in. Batman the Animated Series to me is still arguably the best animated series of all time. So knowing that it was going to be Kevin and the whole same crew and Andrea and everybody, it was how would you not want to go in and do that? So it was I still don't think I have a chance at the part. If I'm totally honest, I tell Andrea all the time I'm waiting for the box set to come out and to pop it in, and it's somebody else's voice. Like, oh, they finally recast me. Okay, I've been waiting for this for 20 years. It's finally Jason Marsden or somebody else. So okay, I get it.
How does it feel like, after all this time, to see the love and reverence that people have, for your work that you did as Terry?
It's amazing. It was one of those things where this was just pre-internet. Mm-hmm. So we didn't really have, it's not the instant feedback that you get nowadays where the show airs and you automatically in 5 seconds know if people like it or they don't, or if they hate it or how much they hate it. It grew, and it was one of those things where we didn't really know how important it was until I think it went to the Hub, which was after it aired, and it's just stuck around. People love it, and I think one of the reasons for it is that Bruce Wayne is an incredible character, complex, dark, but he's a billionaire playboy. Terry is a kid in high school, so a generation of kids grew up really believing they could become Batman. Like, he's just a regular guy. He doesn't need $1 billion. He's just a kid in school who was able to put on a cowl. So that, I think, really resonated with a lot of people and stuck, which is, kind of cool.
Besides that, what's your favorite quality of Batman?
I think his cockiness. It's kind of my favorite quality about Dick Grayson, too. That he and Nightwing, I think, were very similar in a way, in that they were... You really see it during the fight with the Joker in Return of the Joker, where he's... doesn't play by the rules. He's kicking him in the crotch. He's talking back to him. I mean, he's not Bruce. Right. And I think there's that alone is a pretty cool quality. He's and I was just talking about this over there. Everybody always says, like, well, here's the character, if they do it live action, here are the actors I think that should play him. And the list is everybody is 25 to 28 years old. And I keep going, he's 17 and he's supposed to be 17. It's important that he's 17. So I think that was something that really appealed to me as well. All of us look back at ourselves at 17, we were idiots. And so he carries that quality with him. And it's something that I think needs to be part of the character. So everyone always says, it's got to be this guy. It's like, he's 29. That's not right. It's got to be. You should play him. Like, I'm 43. You're missing the point. He's 17. So, hopefully when they do it live action, which I think they will, they'll get some unknown 17-year-old kid to come in and play the part, which would be great, because I'm spitting all over your phone.
So, did you bring any aspect of your personality to the character?
I think so. I mean, I'm genuine, generally a pretty funny person and the work the room kind of guy. And I think there are certain qualities of Terry, and there were times where that came in. He just turned it around and kind of worked the room against the criminals.
Right.
And I think used that to his advantage. And so I'd like to think I brought in some of my humor, but people always ask, like, how much of it was ad-libbed? It's like, none. All the writing is so spot on that you didn't ad-lib any of it. It was, word for word. It's like Ghostbusters. People are always amazed to know that Bill Murray had one ad-libbed line in Ghostbusters. Every other line was scripted. It's because when it's written that well, you don't have to ad-lib. And that's what Batman, and I think Batman the Animated Series and beyond had, where the writing was just so good that you didn't need to add anything.
If Batman Beyond came back, what's something that you like to explore that you didn't get to in the show prior?
One thing that I think would be kind of cool would be exploring a little more of the relationship with his brother. Because one of the things that is interesting that somebody pointed out to me is, if in fact Terry is Bruce's clone and his son, then so is Matt. So there's the aspect of having, one of the things Amanda Waller says to him is you always need another Batman on hand. And what people didn't realize was there's another one after Terry if he wanted to start training Matt. So I think there's kind of something there to bring Matt on as Robin and then maybe move him up to Batman. Could have been kind of a cool way to go with it. But yeah, there's certain aspects of the family life that would have been interesting. And, I love how Bruce Timm said Batman Beyond takes place 50 years in the future from whenever now is. So, it took place 50 years in the future when we started. It takes place 50 years in the future right now. It'll take place 50 years in the future 20 years from now. And so I think also examining what's happening in Gotham in the future is another kind of cool aspect of what we could see.
You said that you were a big fan of Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
Were you intimidated to work opposite Kevin?
Oh God! Are you kidding me? Of course. It was, but our relationship very much mirrored the relationship between Terry and Bruce. I had never done an animated series before. He was an old veteran. I mean, to the point where the first day he literally was like, I'm sitting in front of the microphone like this. And he's like, dude, roll your shoulders back, sit up straight, open your diaphragm. I mean, literally mentoring me in how to be a voiceover actor. It's just a completely different discipline. And he has stayed in that role for 20 years now. So,
and he's Batman.
And the real Batman and the only Batman, in my opinion. So everyone always asks me about, like, is Michael Keaton the best Batman? Like, he's great, but no, Kevin's Batman. And always will be. So, that very much mirrored it. But, I thought I was intimidated working with Kevin, and I was. But then we did Return of the Joker, and I'm in between Kevin and Mark Hamill for 2 weeks, literally sitting between the two of them, just going like this. It was the greatest. So yeah, that was slightly intimidating as well.
One of the kind of dovetailing off the previous point where you were talking about how it was your first real animated role, how did you approach doing a role that was entirely voice versus doing a show for screen? So what kind of a process did you grab for that?
It's like anything else, it's a learning process. One thing you'll find a lot of on-camera actors that you come in and work with you, and your instinct is just like you were talking to me, is to answer you. And it's like, well, you can't do that. The microphone's right in front of you, so you've got to remember that everybody's talking forward, which is a change for an on-camera actor. But other than that, it's like anything else, it's discipline. You just have to, you learn little tactics, you learn little techniques. My first oof and ugh day was very interesting, where you're just sitting there doing oofs and ughs for, that's my entire day. And I remember driving home and calling my mom, like, I can't even explain to you the day of work I just had.
So when you have an
very strange
ooh and ugh day, do they just put that into a file so they have all your oohs and ughs?
Oh, no, you do every episode.
Okay.
You do every episode, and it's they might have animated it where they thought it was a fight up close, and it turns out you're actually fighting from far away, so you've got to, now scream the lines. But other than that, it was kicking ha's and all right, now you're going to get punched and then fall and then get up. So and it's like you're doing that for hours at a time, and they're throwing that in, as they have to. And that was my first real, like, what a bizarre way to make a living kind of day. But man, was it fun.
One of the things that really draws me to the show, and like I still find inspiring, is the theme of second chances.
Sure.
And so like Terry, they established that he has this background of delinquency, and yet Bruce is still, he knows everything, he's Batman, so he's like, he knows about his record and everything, but he's still willing to give him that second chance. I think, not only for the show is it cool that delinquency, that background kind of gives him an edge. You talked about how he's kind of like a Joker and a brawler a little bit maybe, but even just talk about bringing that out as an actor, that idea of second chances. This is a kid who, like, while he is a nice guy, while he does have the will and all the things that, are good for a Bat family member, let's say, he could still, kick your ass, and I just like this idea of second chances, so talk about that.
It is, well, it was not only that, but it's also, we saw that with certain of the villains, too. I mean, occasionally, like when Mr. Freeze came back, it could have easily been awful, but it wasn't. He was another one who was doing his damnedest to just be better. So I think we hit on themes like that all the time, and you always need the second chance, and you always need an opportunity. But at the same time, you can't squander it, and you've got to fight for it. And that's what I think Terry was trying to do. He always had that chip on his shoulder for the mistakes that he made in the past. And I think that stuck with him because he was, in a way, avenging himself. He was trying to make sure that people knew, and ironically that nobody knew, that he was doing everything he could to make amends for everything in his past. And there's also his dad now being gone. Bruce became his father figure, and he was trying to prove to Bruce too that I'm not who I was, and I can change who I am, which which I thought was kind of neat.
Well done. Thank you. When did you guys get the impression that this was actually going to click, work?
Like 6 months ago. San Diego Comic-Con 2017. No, it was strange because, again, like we were talking about, it was pre-internet, so it wasn't instantaneous by any stretch. And it was years, really. I mean, we knew that people were liking the show as it was on, but the fact that it was, that it lasted the way that it did, I don't think any of us foresaw that. Kevin and I talk about that all the time. Like, we're talking 20 years later about this show that we were doing, and a show that they pitched in the room. They just threw out an idea and they went, okay, go do that. I mean, this was all so thrown together, and then it was the opposite of what Warner Brothers wanted at the time. They wanted a teenage, young, fun Batman. And of course, Bruce Timm goes, okay. And I remember being at the screening for it, and 10 minutes in, watching two of the WB executives get up and walk out. It was like, because it wasn't, yes, Batman was younger, but it was dark. And that is not what they were expecting. So I think that resonated with people too. And it just has had this staying power, but none of us foresaw it or thought it was like, we got something. Idea.
Has there been any thought or discussion that you're aware of about doing like a direct-to-video new film? Or
what we've been told, and Bruce said this at Comic-Con at San Diego this year, he said if the box set sells really well, there's a chance that we'll be doing another feature, because this is a very important project to Bruce and to Glenn and to Alan and to everybody, because this was wholly created by them. This is not a Bruce Wayne story. They created the villains. They created Terry. So this is the one where they say if we could do more of anything, we want to do more Beyond, because this is theirs. So hopefully.
What would a Batman Beyond look like today?
51 years.
51 years. I guess it would depend on how you want to do it. You could either go, or you could do, when we saw Epilogue, Terry was now older and in the New Justice League. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to go about doing it that I wouldn't even want to speculate. I just want that first script in front of me. Because, man, that's going to be good. God willing. Buy the box set. No, not really.
Did they come up that you had?
Well, what it was, and I think that's one of the reasons why I got the role, I think, is because I was one of the few that went in and did Terry differently than I did Batman. And it was because I realized nobody would be scared of a 17-year-old's voice coming out from behind, a cowl. So I tried to make him more gravelly, and in his head, it was just him trying to sound like more of a badass. But we wanted to keep it away from Kevin, and make sure that there was definite delineation between the two voices. But yeah, it was fun to kind of play those two parts.
So you said you took the role because it's Batman.
Yeah.
And
I love to say took the role like I made a decision. I was lucky enough to be offered the role. Yeah.
And we're here 20 years later still talking about the show. As somebody who's played Batman, what do you think it is that appeals to people about the character?
About Terry or Batman in general?
Batman in general.
I think the thing, in my opinion, that is that Batman does good, changes the world, does everything he can with nothing but his wits. He doesn't have superpowers. He's not sent from another planet to save all of us mortals. He does it himself. And I think that's something that I know that resonates with me, and I think that's something that resonates with a lot of fans. I mean, yeah, the gadgets are cool, but you get that with James Bond. The money's cool. You get that with James Bond. It's this kind of will to, I'm not going to stop. Even if you kill me, I'm not going to stop. That Batman has, that I think is unique in the superhero realm.
If you had to pick like an episode or even a moment that stuck out to you throughout the entire series, what would it be?
There's a lot of them. I like some of the lighter stuff that Kevin and I did. One of my favorites is when Terry brings Bruce to Batman the Musical, and he's sitting there watching it, and they're trying to. And Terry's singing along with it, and Bruce is just pissed to be there. And Terry says, it's Schway, and Bruce says, it's Schwarbage, and walks out. There's something about sitting there watching his thing. And the other thing I thought was really cool between us is when somebody's trying to take over Bruce's mind, and he says at the end, he says, yeah, I knew it wasn't possible because he kept the voice in my head kept calling me Bruce. And he said, that's not what I call myself. And then Terry says, that's my name now. And so I thought that was a cool way to end an episode too. So yeah, those little moments I had with Kevin were great.
Thank you for repeating that.
The other question I have for you is, as this is your first voice acting role, now, did you always record with the full cast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Luckily.
When someone came in as a guest role, was there anyone who stood out as being like, I can't believe this person's here?
Every week. Every single week. That's the thing about working with Andrea, is you never knew who was going to be in the room, and they're all people that you just... I mean, from the pilot, where I'm sitting in this chair right now because of Michael J. Fox and Family Ties. So, I mean, it's the only thing I ever wanted to be was an actor on a sitcom. And the first person I met was Michael Gross, who played Mr. Keaton, who played Terry's dad. Terry Garr played my mom. So that's day one as you walk in.
Pretty impressive.
It was amazing. Then you get Henry Rollins, and it was just one after another. Robert Patrick and all these kind of people, and you're just going, I can't. This is the greatest thing ever. John Ritter was there for 2 episodes, and so I got a chance to work with him before he passed, and it's like that's a moment I'll always take. Yeah, Bill Macy. I mean, there's one after another of all these people and that's all Andrea. I mean, you just never knew. And it was also people, you would cast people, or she would cast people that you'd never expect in the role that would then just come in and nail it. So it was great.
Awesome. If you were given the role, like let's say you were 17 now, and like when they came to you and they said you can play live action,
Terry McGinnis,
who would you want as Bruce Wayne?
Oh wow. Everyone says Michael Keaton. And I think that's great, but I frankly think he's too young. I would go Clint Eastwood. I would have 82-year-old Clint Eastwood as a gravelly, old Bruce Wayne. That would be my casting.
I used to think that Charlton Heston would have been the perfect...
There you go, Heston. From my cold, dead cowl.
Yes. That's quite a miracle.
Yeah. He's well, actors never die. They're just unavailable. So I don't think we'd be able to get him. But all right. Thank you guys very much.
All right. So that was a good one, I think. Another one where we got to ask a lot of questions. Sometimes at these round tables, you don't get a question out. Sometimes you get one. I got to ask him 3 questions. I thought that was good.
That's not bad.
And you screamed a question or two. So, I mean...
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got this imposter syndrome. I pretty much always think that what I have to ask is not as important as somebody else. And then you'll get that one guy who's like, yeah, so which would win, your character or the Hulk? And you're like, oh, God.
No. It wasn't. It's not that bad.
I'm not hitting on most press there is professional, but you always get that one.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Anyway, and then we have one last interview this week, boys and girls.
Really pumping them out, aren't we?
This was a short one I did on the floor. I was by myself. I know.
I'm not supposed to leave you unattended. That's what they say on the
So this is Brian Jones. He's a comic book creator. He worked on Bill and Ted Go to Hell and Bill and Ted Save the Universe for IDW. He's also done Imagine Agents for IDW. No, I'm sorry, that one's Boom Studios, and Krampus for Boom Studios. Secret Identities is also IDW. So I just chatted with him for a couple minutes. It was one of those things. I was walking around Artist Alley by myself, talking to people, and he starts talking to me like, "Hey, how you doing?" Blah blah. Just having a normal conversation, and he said it's always great to meet people. And I'm like, yeah, I love talking to people. It's kind of why I started my podcast. He's like, oh, you have a podcast? Yeah, we were talking about it. And I'm like, hey, why don't I interview you? So I pulled out my recorder, and we had this nice little chat. And without further ado, here's Brian Jones.
All right, everyone. We're here on the floor at New York Comic Con with Brian Jones. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm actually really enjoying the show this year. I think it's been a great show. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, I enjoy it. This is my third time here. I tend to do a year, skip a year, do a year, skip a year. So this has been a lot of fun. It's been fun meeting new people and seeing people I've met at previous shows and talking to the fans, doing the whole networking thing. Yeah, it's great.
So I see you have 4 of your books here on the table. You've got Bill and Ted Go to Hell.
Yes.
Save the Universe, which I'm familiar with those. What's your Krampus book? Can you give us an idea on that?
Yeah, Krampus is a book I did a couple years ago. It is basically taking the Krampus myth, which is the demon creature who punishes wicked children on Christmas Eve, and putting him in kind of an Escape from New York scenario where he has to he gets sprung from jail to help the many Santas in the world reclaim their power, but they have a bomb strapped to him. If he's too naughty, he'll blow up. So he has to be on good behavior.
I like that. I really like that.
Thanks.
And then what about Imagine Agents?
Imagine Agents. It's here's the Hollywood elevator pitch. It's a team of operatives that go after the imaginary friends of little kids who are on the up and up. It's some people say it's Men in Black meets Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which is kind of that way, but I feel like it's a little goes into the characters a little deeper than the old Men in Black comics did.
Right.
And that one's actually been optioned for a film, and Michael Keaton's doing it. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of OG Batman, which is pretty cool.
That's really cool. I have to keep my eyes out for that.
Yeah.
So have you always wanted to work in comics?
Yeah, I grew up reading them in the 70s and 80s, and then I went to school to be a theater major, and I wound up in Portland, Oregon, writing plays, and I found out I liked people responding to my writing more than I did responding to my acting.
Okay.
And so I kind of just merged that realization with my love of comics, and I've been going since 2000. And
well, there you go.
Yeah.
And I see you've worked with different artists.
Yeah.
How do you find the right artist to marry with your work?
It depends on what company I'm working for. The Imagine Agents and the Bill and Ted books I did with Boom, and they were great in finding an artist for me and putting us together. And it's actually the same artist, Bakan, who has done all three of those. And then for Krampus and other books I've done, they are, I just find them online, or I co-wrote one book with Jay Ferber, who does Copperhead and Noble Causes and whatnot. And he had found Ilias Kyriazakis, a Greek artist, online. Right. And so the three of us came up with this concept and jumped on that. And, yeah, that was great. And Ilias, he's one of the ones I see here every time I'm here. And because I don't make it over to Greece all that often, but it's always great to catch up with him.
Cool. Yeah, actually, I've played with the idea of writing a comic for a long time, and I have an idea. But it's that fear of finding an artist who's willing to work with me. And, I don't have a lot of money to put out for an artist either.
Sure.
So, what would you say to someone who, like me, who has the idea but is afraid to make the jump?
Well, I feel like these days especially, you can always do something online, so you don't need to worry about print costs. As far as finding an artist, that's kind of the riddle to crack. I don't have... I'm not rolling in dough either, so that's, as soon as I figure that, I'll let you know.
Okay.
but I think it's just important, even if you find an artist who has a fairly passable, skill or what have you, but something that's not first grade level, obviously.
Right.
If you can just put something together to show someone, just to show someone that you understand the panel to panel, how the mechanics of writing go, and then your content is good. That's the first step. Everyone always says, if you wanted to get into comics, make comics, and then the gates will open, like the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you'll be invited to the Polanski house.
Right. Okay, that's good. All right, so we normally sign off the podcast by saying, don't let your cake get caught in the door.
Okay.
So it actually did start as a joke, but it grew into something meaning, don't let your shortcomings or obstacles get in the way of achieving your goals.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that you've overcome in your life to achieve your goals?
I think just self-doubt, and like you were saying, like worrying about putting myself out there and everything. I still remember the first time I ever did a show with some comics that I self-published that, looking back, I was so... I came from playwriting, so I would do these pages and panels with just these giant soliloquies and monologues by characters, and then there's a little bit of art in the corner, But I would say honestly, just like learning the mechanics of comics versus writing is writing, and which is not true. Everything has its own style, its own theory, its own workings, and I will add this, that there's an expression I like that is that it's use the pain. So whatever hardships in the world are bringing you down, don't let it overwhelm you. Use it to further your craft.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the question that we normally wrap up on is, how do you measure success?
How do you measure success? I would say for me, I've been pretty lucky. I'm not, I'm certainly not A-list or top tier, but I've been pretty lucky and pretty consistent since 2013 as far as getting books out. So I still have a day job. So I guess for me, the measure of success will be when I can finally Shawshank my way out of my cubicle, just, go out in the yard and drop pieces of my cube there after 15 years and finally get out.
Cool. I like that answer. So where can people find you online?
I'm the most famous Brian Joins in the world, so that's a very shallow pool to be the big fish in. But, I'm just Brian Joins on Facebook. I'm Brian.m.joins on Twitter, and Brian_M_joins, and that's JOINES, on Instagram.
All right. Cool. Thank you for your time.
And just let me add one more thing.
Okay.
And this February, I have a new book coming out from Oni. It's called Backtrack. It is about a cross-country rally car race where each leg of the race is in a different period of history, and whoever wins gets to go back along their own timeline and change one mistake they made. So it's a bunch of broken, damaged people getting eaten by dinosaurs or killed by Vikings trying to correct some wrong done to them.
Is that in previews now?
No, I think it's gonna be solicited probably the next one, I believe. But
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So everyone listening, make sure you ask your comic shop owner to order it for you.
Please do. Grandma needs her insulin.
Thank you.
All right. See, now, John, you have to listen to the episode so you can hear it.
You're assuming that I'm interested. No, of course I'm interested. Sure. In the middle, while I'm working on all of the pictures and sorting through them tomorrow.
So those interviews give you a small sample of the coverage we got this year. We talked to, again, a lot of people, some great creators over at Dark Horse, over at IDW. We've talked to some people that worked on a book by Stan Lee, A Trick of Light. Yes.
Yep.
So keep an ear out for all of this stuff. It'll be coming soon. There's going to be tons more articles on the website.
Don't forget Cynthia von Bueller too.
Oh yes.
Yeah, can't forget her. Wow.
No, that was a very fun interview. That's going to come soon too. But yes, again, keep her out. We're going to probably be. That's another thing. Keep an eye out because we're going to probably be doubling up the next couple of weeks so we can get some of this stuff out, so no one gets left in the dust like we've done before.
Yep. No, not this time. Now everything
will be going out, and it'll be going out as quickly as possible. But of course, we got other things to talk about. Some of you might be disappointed that we're not talking about Joker this week because we were at New York Comic Con instead of seeing a remake of the Taxi Driver. I mean,
it's not a remake of Taxi Driver.
Oh,
it's a shot for shot.
No, that's right. It's a remake of The King of Comedy with some Taxi Driver thrown in.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what?
Oh boy. And I've actually done a paper on The King of Comedy back in college, and wow. So this is we're going to see. I've heard some things about it. Not going to say anything here until we've seen it, so we know exactly what is a spoiler and what isn't.
Right.
And anybody listening's probably heard stuff already too, so we'll see.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll do that next week, but we'll see. Until then, again, if you're not already doing so, make sure you check out superheroespeak.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at superheroespeak. Of course, facebook.com/superheroespeak. And there's also Superhero Speak Hangout, which is a group. If you join that, we try to talk with our fans there as much as we can, interact with people, post interesting articles that maybe you want us to talk about on the show. It's a great new fun way to interact with us. So, until next time, boys and girls, as always, thanks for listening, and don't let your cape get caught in the door. Have a good week.